I talk with math and numbers. No, joke lang. Alam ko may other exciting stuff that you guys are waiting for, but I hope that you give me the indulgence of listening. About 30 minutes lang naman tayo dito, okay? Okay, so real estate playbook, okay? Smart strategies for building wealth and finding your ideal home, right? We're here in this expo talking about our forever home, and we wanna see how we're able to do that, okay? Sige, let's go through it. I know Mika already introduced me, but let me introduce myself again. Hi everyone, I'm Charm De Leon. I'm the finance director of some of these companies, and I'm an entrepreneurship and financial literacy advocate. And if nabitin kayo sa content natin today or talk natin today, you guys can check me out. I'm also a content creator. I talk about business and finance and generally adulting stuff, including real estate. All right. But I know that doesn't really mean stuff. Yung previous slide, you guys want to know how I am a real estate investor. So here is my real estate portfolio. So I first started investing in condominiums in 2018. I was 24 years old. So kayo na mag-math how old I am now. I bought my first condo, put it under a corporation. I had partners with that. Condo number 2 in 2019. Condo number 3 in 2020, which I bought with my now husband. 2024, condo number 4. And then house and lot, which is our forever home, last year lang. Okay, and then I also manage properties. So I don't own these properties, but I'm in the business of leasing both residential, vacation, and commercial. So we have 70 plus commercial spaces. It's called Sugbo Mercado in Cebu, if you've ever visited. That started in 2015, so we're about to celebrate our 10th year anniversary this September. And then I manage 3 separate beach houses. So if ever you guys are in Cebu, you can hit me up or look for our properties on short-term rental websites. And then another condo that I manage as well. Okay. Okay, some general lessons that I've learned in the 7-8 years that I've been actually 10 years that I've been in real estate, right? Location is crucial. I'm just gonna breeze through them because we'll discuss them further later on. Understanding your budget, know your investment purpose or why you're buying this property or leasing or whatever. Cash flow is king. Do your due diligence and diversify your portfolio. All right, let's go through them. First, location is crucial. I don't think this is new. Location, ika nga, di ba? So when you buy a property with the purpose of generating profit, this is what we call real estate investing, right? And that's why location is very important. It's not just your preference that's in play, it's the market that you're trying to capture, especially if you're trying to rent it out. So they always say, di ba, real estate almost always appreciates. Why does that happen, right? Let me just break it down. And I think most of you guys know, but when an area develops kasi, people want to live there, right? People want to live there because it's near their work, it's near their offices, the factories they work in, or the schools of their children, etc. That means there's more demand. When people want to live there, there's more demand. And when there's more demand, there's less supply. This is the reason why prices increase because land is a scarce resource, right? That's when you build a building, you can't just, decide, oh, I'll add like 20 more floors, diba? If it's not part of the plan, right? Okay, so next is you have to understand your budget. There's these rule of thumbs that I kind of follow. And with rules of thumbs, they're flexible rules. And of course, you have to adjust them on how it works for you personally. So 3x, 30%, and 28/36. Okay, what are these? Let's go through them. 3x. You can afford a property that's priced at 3 times your annual income. About 3 times your annual income. Okay, so included bonuses, 13th month pays, and etc. 30%, you would want to save, my rule of thumb is 10 to 30%. So conservatively, para easier to remember, save 30% of the value of your property. So this is gonna go to like down payments, reservation fees, and other fees that are associated with buying a property. 2836. So not more than 28% of your income should go to your personal residential loan. Okay? So 28%, don't worry, I'll give sample numbers later. And, and your total debt should not be more than 36% of your income. So if 28% is going to a real estate investment or your forever home, then you have another 8% that can go to a car loan, a business, a renovation loan, and etc. So let's break that down into numbers. So if you earn 200,000 pesos a month in your household, so if you're a double income household, you and your husband are earning a collective 200,000 pesos a month or around 2.4 million a year, you can buy a property that's approximately 7.2 million pesos. Okay? 30% of that, save around 2 million, 2.1 million for the down payment, fees, etc. Para you don't have to worry as much for the next few years. You don't want to just think about the next 3 to 6 months payment. You want to think years, a bit of in advance, right? And then the 28-30 rule, you can have a home loan of maximum of 56,000 pesos a month repayment and a maximum total debt of 72,000 pesos a month. So if you have another car loan, that's 15,000 pesos a month and etc. Right? Okay, before investing in real estate, we want to do the readiness check. Ready na ba tayo mag-invest in real estate, right? We all know that it's a big commitment and we're all excited, but let's do a little bit of step back and talk to ourselves. Am I ready to buy, right? Okay, what do you need? You need good credit. I'll be breaking down the numbers of why I personally think that, unpopular opinion, but I personally think even if I have the full amount, I'm going to use a loan to buy a property. I'll explain why later. So assuming you take out a loan, make sure you build a good credit to get the best offers on your interest rates and get approved for a loan. And even if you're not applying for a loan, the developers would want to see if you are able to pay off the property, right? Knowledge. Through research on location, pricing in the area. So usually you can look at the peso per square meter. Hindi lang yung total amount yung tingnan nyo. You divide the total amount divided by how many square meters it is and you'll get the property value in the area. And then you can compare more directly with the properties that you're looking at. The developer and etc. So you as much as I trust my brokers, I need to be able to step into a meeting and know what they're talking about. And if I don't, I ask, right? Don't be ashamed to ask questions if you don't understand something. You want to be able to fully understand and grasp what you're getting yourself into. And then lastly, I mentioned this earlier, that have 10 to 30% of the total contract price for all the initial payments and fees. Okay. Know your investment purpose. When you have a property that you want to earn from, you can earn in two ways. First is through rental income. You can either rent it out furnished, semi-furnished, or bare. Diskarte nyo na yan. This can serve as like a monthly passive income. But what I notice is, what I kind of warn people about is don't fully trust that this will be the only source of money that will be paying your loan. You personally should be able to have a backup that if ever you don't have a tenant that month, you can still pay your amortization, right? And then capital appreciation. Low, sell high, right? It works in stocks, it also works in real estate. We buy properties now because estate almost always appreciates, right? So when we buy now, in the future, down the road, if you want to sell it or pamana natin sa anak natin and they want to sell it or loan against the property, the value is higher already. Okay, so there are I know we're all about residential in this expo, but there are a lot of types of real estate, and my two businesses are mostly residential and commercial. Okay, so there are different kinds of investors or strategies when it comes to real estate. There's not That's why this is why people say that there's no one size fits all, right? Because it has to depend on what your purpose is for your investment. So you can be the hunter. So the hunter buys foreclosed properties because it's usually cheaper than the market, because it's also usually a bit beaten down, but you improve it and then you resell the property. You can be the flipper. The hunter only buys and sells. The flipper is the one that buys, renovates, and sells, or what they call in the industry flipping properties. You can be a builder, like RLC Residences, wherein you build or develop and then sell. So a lot of builder also do it in small scales, like one duplex lang, one row of townhouses. You're still technically a builder, right? The swing seller, people who buy at pre-selling price, because we all know that pre-selling price is much cheaper than ready for occupancy, and sell as the property or developer is about to turn over the property, because as we near the turnover date, the value will be slowly increase already. So I have bought a property from a swing seller. It's also what we call assume. You assume a property from a previous seller, right? Or pasalo. So the landlord, if you want to be a landlord, so instead of selling your property, which is what we've been talking here, you want to manage your property and rent them out either short-term or long-term for passive income. All right? Next, cash flow is king. All right? So why am I investing in real estate? You know the slide has not been updated, or hindi ko na malayan kasi I'm already at 30-something. Why am I investing in real estate as a 30-something? Okay, so first, because of time horizon. Even if I'm a 30-something, I still have a long way to go before retirement, right? And that means that I can probably be done with my loans. Currently, I have a 20-year loan for a property. I will probably be done with my loan by the time I'm in my 50s, which is probably around the time also I wanna start thinking about settling down and retiring. I have forced savings. When we're in our 20s and 30s, it's the time of our life when we are tempted to spend the most on, when you look back, might not be the most smartest financial decisions, right? We spend a lot on traveling or shopping, eating out, and like all of just these things because we don't normally think we could afford a property. So I'll spend on these experiences and material things instead. But because I invested in a property, I have a forced savings amount that I put aside every month to pay my amortization. Then I have something to show for what I've been working on the last decade, right? And then lastly is leverage, and this is the turning point on why I started doubling down on investing in real estate. And it's going to require me to discuss some math, okay? Follow with me here. So leverage is when you borrow money, somebody else's money, for you to progress or move forward with your finances, right? So you're basically taking, if you borrow money from a bank, that's other people's money that's in their savings accounts, right? You pay the bank an interest rate, and then they pay off the people's savings account as well. But then you can use that money to invest in assets that can earn you more money. Okay, how does that work? Let's take this studio unit from Mira as an example. It's of course by RLC Residences. So for example, a studio unit in a central location is 7.4 million. So it includes parking already. It's a 26.5 square meter unit. It has great location, outdoor play area, multiple pools, roof deck, fitness center, multiple multi-purpose courts, function room, yoga. You know, you guys can see all of these, right? So it's also pet friendly and it's also smart home ready. But right now, because we're in an expo like this, you're gonna see a lot of sample computations na similar to this, wherein actually I heard nga the special discount is not just 5%. I heard parang may 10%, diba? So it's even bigger. But let's be conservative. The 7.4 million now becomes around 6.9 million, or for easier math, let's use 7 million pesos, right? So why did I say I would rather take out the loan even if I have the full 7 million right now? So most of us think that we need the whole amount to invest in real estate, right? But if you're buying an investment property, the best way to do that is by taking out a loan because home loans or mortgages are one of the cheapest forms of loans out there. They're at around 6 to 8%. Car loans are at about 10 to 12%. Business loans higher than that. And why is that? Because the property will not go anywhere. If ever, knock on wood, hopefully wala naman, no? If ever you default on your loan and they have to foreclose your property, you can't carry your property with you and go off to God knows where, right? The property stays there. So that's why they give it at a lower rate as compared to the other forms of loans here in the Philippines. So let's do the sample computation. If a 7 million peso property, I'll take out a loan for it. So, like I said kanina, we need a down payment of around 10 to 30%. This is also what's required by banks and financial institutions. They will only loan out 70 to 90%. But, you know, that's a big range, so let's use 20%, right? So if I'm going to have a down payment of 20% or 1.4 million pesos, I'll loan out the rest, that's 5.6 million pesos. And that comes, let's say it's a 20-year loan, 6.5%, dinig ko, 6.25 yung bigay nila ngayon eh. 6.5 fixed for 5 years, and then 7% assumed average annual interest rate for the rest of your loan term. That comes out around 43,000 pesos a month, okay? So medyo I rounded these off ha, para the math is easier. I have 5.6 million left, right? Because we're assuming I have the 7 million. I'll put that 5.6 million in stocks, mutual funds, index funds, MP2. Very conservative form of investment. Some people would argue it grows slow, but you know, we don't want that money to go anywhere, so let's put it there. If you want to start a business, you can probably, you know, earn 50, 100% that, but let's be conservative, okay? 7%, the 5.6 million will earn 7%. And then annual inflation rate, okay? If your loan amortization or loan repayment every month for the next 20 years is around 43,000 pesos a month, 43,000 pesos a month will not feel like 43,000 pesos in 5, 10, and 15 years. The same way our 1,000 pesos now cannot buy a cart full of groceries. Basket na lang, di ba? So it's in the same way, that's what's happening here. You're essentially freezing time in terms of how much you're gonna be paying, right? So in the 5th year, the 43,000 will feel like 37,000. 10th year, the 43,000 will feel like 31,000, and in 15 years, it will feel like 27,000 pesos of today's money, right? You're still paying 43,000, but in terms of what the value is, bababa siya. Okay, because of our annual inflation in the Philippines, that's approximately 3% average. And then lastly, we have a very conservative as well, 3% annual property appreciation. This is based on the global standards. Each property here that you can see in RLC Residences will have different historical appreciation per property, especially if you compare it to the pre-selling price. Some have doubled in 5, 10 years, but let's be conservative, 3% annual property appreciation rate, okay? So what does that look like in 20 years? The 5.6 million that you invested at 7% per annum average will become 22.6 million pesos, right? So you are up approximately 17 million. The annual inflation rate that you've saved because of you took out the loan earlier is 2.4 million, and the annual property appreciation value on the 20th year is approximately 12.75 million, or we're up 5.75 million. Okay, that's around 82% in 20 years. Sorry, I forgot to discuss. Okay, so the loan that you took out, the total repayment will be around 10.4 million pesos. Remember, 5.6 lang yung hiniram mo, 10.4 million yung ibabalik mo. And this is where people usually stop Parang, oh, ayaw ko dyan, parang magdodoble yung mabibigay ko. But you're not thinking about your cash flow and what you can do in that 20 years if your money is not tied down to one property, right? So, your total interest is, yes, 4.8 million, but let's figure out why it still makes sense. Your total interest rate was on average 7%, right? Let's say you quote-unquote lost 4.8 million on that because you borrowed money. And then, but your growth opportunity is 13%. And remember, I was being conservative. I didn't consider if you opened a business. I didn't consider if the property value went even higher. You're up 13%, so you're up 25 million, right? So you're up, the net of that is 6%, right? So obviously, you lost 10 million So, hindi to full 25 million, but 14 million savings is still not bad. Just because you choose to diversify and use your money elsewhere for better cash flow. So, I didn't even include rental income yet, which I'm not sure if you guys noticed, which is around 6 to 12% per annum of the, so you would have another, you would have another 1.2 to 2.4 million pesos a year, depending on how much you're renting out the property. Parang hindi updated yan, but I have another slide that explains that, sorry. Okay, next, do your due diligence. I hope you guys are still with me, and I hope the numbers were not too confusing, and I was able to relay it that you guys would understand. Do your due diligence. There are 4 main things that you need to pay attention to when you're buying your property. We mentioned location already, but not just the physical not just the location mismo of the property, but there are surrounding areas as well. And then the brokers, because get a trusted and registered broker, right? Huwag kayong magkolorom kasi magkakaproblema kayo, promise. And then the developer, the quality of the real estate developer will determine the quality of your property, the quality of the property management after the property is turned over. Because it's not just when it's turned over and it's yours already, the experience that you have living in that place will determine your overall experience. So how mabilis ba yung security, maayos ba yung billing, how to price your rental property. I mentioned earlier, we earn around 6 to 12% of the property value per year. So 0.5% to 1% rule. So if you have a 7 million peso property, you can probably rent it out at around 35 to 70,000 pesos a month. This depends, it's a big range, I know, but it depends on your location, it depends on how you market your property and all of that. So that will depend on you na. And then, if you don't want to use this formula, you can do market research. How much are the other properties around your area, maybe even within your building? And then you can decide from there, what else do you offer that you can up the rate? Or maybe you're offering at a bare unit, so maybe you can lower the rate. So that depends. You can check out listings and social media platforms for how much the competitors are pricing their property. Okay, we're almost done. Long-term versus short-term rental. So long-term rental, lower rental revenue, but you don't have as much flexibility because they're gonna be in your property 1 to 5 years. You can't just barge in and say, can I use your bathroom? Because this is my property. You can't do that, right? Less to manage, more wear and tear. But sila na bahala. They have to return the property to you as they found it, right? So higher, for short-term rental naman, ito yung mga like overnight or 1 week, 1 month, higher rental revenue, yes. You have more flexibility if you personally want to use your property and you can just schedule to block off those dates. You can offset the cost of owning the property and turn it into an investment. And there's also less wear and tear because you're constantly there and checking up on the property. Lastly, diversify your portfolio. I've talked about and I've hyped up real estate in the last 20 minutes, so give me some time to, again, step back, right? Take a step back. The cons of real estate investing, and I know we're at an RLC Residences event, but you know, we want to be responsible investors. Your money will be tied down to your real estate. Even if it's just a 20% down payment, it's much bigger than starting out with stocks, for example, right? the upkeep and maintenance. A lot of people don't expect this when they buy a property. They don't have any idea how basic electricals, mechanical, plumbing works, right? Which I fortunately do because I'm a licensed architect as well. So when I do my property management, sometimes I mount the TV myself. Sometimes, I fix plumbing myself. I teach them how to reset Wi-Fi. I become a technical ka na rin. But yeah, if you're a landlord, you are tasked to maintain your property and it's more cost efficient if you know the basics and if hindi kaya, you hire a professional. Risk of being house poor. So ito yung you don't have good cash flow, especially if you put all your money in one real estate property, right? And masikip siya sa bulsa. Okay, so lastly, a property should not be your only investment because you run the risk of being house poor. So this is why my suggestion is if you're thinking real estate should be your first investment, maybe look into bonds, mutual funds, UITFs, ETFs, stocks, etc. first, right? Have these paper assets first before you buy this tangible asset. Okay, so screenshot niyo na lang yan. But, sorry, this is pros of real estate investing. I think I've talked a lot about that already. So, passive income, growth potential, stability, predictability, and increasing value. Okay? So, I don't think I have time for that anymore. So, thank you so much.